Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond Travel Check-ins with Saida and sometimes Jermaine. So as you guys know, there's a lot going on in the US. We got the tariffs, we have the price of eggs going up, we have the price of groceries going up. A lot of people are a little bit fearful about where the economy is going. The price of homes are up, rent is up. A lot of people are losing jobs. So there's definitely a reason for concern. However, Jermaine and I, we are still American citizens. We're always going to keep our American citizenship. Yes, we do live in another country. Yes, we are still concerned about the economic climate in the US because the US is where we make our income. But we do want to tackle what we be doing right now if we were still in the US. So while we're living in Kenya, we are making some financial decisions because, again, our finances are connected to the US, but we don't actually live there day to day. But we're still concerned about the things that go on there because we have adult children who live in the US, as well as grandchildren who live in the US, as well as parents who live in the US and family. So if we were living in the US, I'm going to share 11 things that Jermaine and I would be doing right now. And these are also things that we did prior to moving internationally. And they're also things that we continue to do while we are living internationally. So the first thing that we would do is top up our emergency fund. Anytime the economy gets shaky, and even when the economy is not shaky, I think just having an emergency fund is really important. A lot of the experts say 3 to 6 months should be in your emergency fund, but if you're living paycheck to paycheck or you're living where you just have a little bit of surplus after all of your expenses are paid, then maybe 3 to 6 months may not be realistic. So for us, you know, if it were us, right, when we were like working on building up our emergency fund, we try to make sure we have $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 in an emergency fund. So like I said, if you can't do 3 to 6 months, you definitely want to have something in there in case of an emergency, and not if an emergency happens, but when an emergency happens. And for us, I particularly like sitting that money in a high yield account or a money market account, because if I just sit my money in a bank, I'm not earning anything from it. It's just sitting there. The bank is really making the most money off of it. So what we would do is we would look for a high yield checking or savings account, something that gives around 4 or 5%, or maybe a money market account. For us, that would be like the wisest thing to do with money that we're not actually investing in the market, but that we want to be able to get to relatively easily. The next thing we would do if we were still in the US is pay off debt. Debt is one of the things that just will keep you like in a financial chokehold. It will keep you from being able to do the things that you want to do from a financial standpoint, whether it's travel, whether it's to be able to just pay your bills and have extra surplus. Debt is bondage. In the life of a believer, we know that the borrower is slave to the lender. So you want to just like flee and free yourself from debt as soon as you can, whether it's house, cars, credit cards, loans. You want to get out of debt as fast as you can. You want to get on a plan for paying down that debt because life just hits different when you don't have debt. Economic turmoil hits different when you don't have debt, and also when you have also an emergency fund. So the third thing on the list that I think Jermaine and I would consider if we were still in the US and if this was the issue for us would be improving our credit. And the easiest way to improve credit is, one, pay your bills on time, pay them consistently, but also even travel hacking. And I'm not going to talk too much about travel hacking because that's more of my husband's expertise, but basically using your credit cards to earn rewards, free flights, free hotel stays, and all those different kinds of things, and cash back when you're using those cards. So I would definitely work on improving my credit score, because credit is going to be attached to a lot of different things, whether it is opening a business, getting money to open a business, getting approval for credit cards, purchasing a home, renting a property, your credit is just connected to so many things. So that's one thing that we would definitely work on. Number 4 would be to start a high margin or high ROI, return on investment, side hustle. And the one thing about a side hustle is that it's not going to make you money overnight. But in this economic climate, I would definitely be looking to have some kind of revenue stream on the side that could potentially long-term be my main revenue stream. And even if it never becomes your main revenue stream, it's always good to have some other money coming in on the side if you're able to. A lot of people have great jobs, especially these younger generations. They have these great jobs that pay great money and stuff like that. But as we're seeing in today's economy and with today's political climate, people's jobs are getting wiped out just like that. So it's not about living in fear, because we don't want to live in fear. We don't want to live in bondage, or we don't want to have a victim mentality, but we want to put ourselves in a position that if the job leaves today or tomorrow, right, we do have something to tide us over until we get another job. And also just something to tide us over for other things like investing, traveling, those sorts of things. Another thing that we would be doing in this climate would be being strategic with our housing. Now, one of the things that Jermaine and I did before we bought our house is we rented an apartment. We rented apartments, and we rented at one economic level, then we moved up to another economic level. But each time we moved up, we were always asking ourselves whether or not this was going to be a strategic move for us. Like, why were we moving up, or why were we moving to another neighborhood? And the thing was, the goal was to provide different opportunities for our children. And so when we moved to our last apartment, the rent was one price, but I was asking Jermaine for us to move into another apartment that was $300 less. And that's what you call rental, I guess you call strategic housing or rental arbitrage in a way. And it's basically not moving to a place at the top of your budget, but maybe moving to something a little bit less to free up some extra surplus cash. But the thing is, you don't want to compromise your safety in the neighborhood that you're choosing. You don't want to compromise the opportunities that your children may have. So those are some of the things that you want to think about. But that is another thing that you can think about, because that's something that Jermaine and I did, and it was really kind of like a strategic housing. So yeah, if we were renting in the US right now, we would consider renting below what we could afford and then investing the rest. That's what we would do. But for us, since we're not renters and we own our home, we do something that's called geo arbitrage. And if you don't know what geo arbitrage is, I'm going to read the definition for you. It's basically strategically moving to a place with a lower living expense, allowing your income to stretch further and potentially achieve financial goals faster. So for Jermaine and I, when we were in the States, we were already living in a LCOL, which is low cost of living area. And so we kind of strategically always made those decisions. Before we moved to Kenya, we thought about moving to another state. And we ultimately ended up deciding to move out of the country. Now, there are much cheaper countries you could move to aside from Kenya. You have like Mexico, you have Thailand, and we considered those places as well. But we ended up in Kenya, one, because Kenya, it fell more in line with our purpose and our mission and the things that we're doing in life. So with geo arbitrage, you are leaving one cost of living and moving to another one that's less expensive. It's not exactly what we did, because it's not actually cheap to live here in Nairobi, and it's not really lower than what we were paying when we were living in the States. But our goal wasn't geo arbitrage, but I want you to understand what geo arbitrage is. It's basically moving from a higher cost of living area to a lower cost of living area. And you can do that within the United States. Like if you're living in New York, you can move to South Carolina. Or if you're living in New York, you can move to Charlotte. For us, we did consider those things, but we ended up in Kenya. But that's what that looks like. If you're paying, let's say $2,500, $3,000 for rent in New York, and then you move to Mexico and you're paying $1,000, now you're saving $1,000 plus. by moving to another country just on rent, but you also have to calculate in the price of other things, like visas and flights and immunizations and healthcare and all those things that are available in that country. So you want to take those things into consideration. So one of the primary goals or reasons why people do geo arbitrage is because they want to improve their finances and also maximize their income. And what happens is if you move to a lower cost of living area, you're able to reduce your expenses. So that gives you more money to save, more money to invest, whether it's investing in other things in the US or investing outside of the US. So basically how it works is you earn your money in the US, and you can do that by working remotely. Like Jermaine and I, we are digital nomads, and pretty much we earn our money online. So we don't have to physically be in the US to earn a living. But you spend that money in a low cost of living area. And for us, it's like a equal cost of living area. But those of you who want to save money, you know, places like Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, or South America is going to be the places where you can save a lot more money. The other thing is, if you are not able to be like an independent contractor or self-employed like Jermaine and I, people can work remotely. And I know a lot of people right now are looking for remote jobs, you know, and I kind of see that some companies are actually not wanting people to work outside of the US, but I think those opportunities are out there. And I think for me, that would be something that I would be looking into, and I think Jermaine would be looking into if we had that opportunity, and if we were still in the States. We would be looking to say, how can we get a job outside of the US, working for a US company, and live in a lower cost of living area? And that's really the whole game when it comes to geo arbitrage. It's working remotely, earning your money in the US, and having a lower cost of living in another country. So the other thing that Jermaine and I would probably do if we were in the States was try to stay consistent in investing in our tax advantage accounts, making our Roth IRA contributions. I think this year is like $7,500. And keep in mind, guys, that this is not any financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Just have to put that disclaimer out there. But yeah. And one thing I would say is even making small, consistent investments will make an impact. So you might not be able to max, like we don't typically max out our IRAs, but every small contribution makes an impact. Like it's not going to be a time when I say, oh, well, I'm just not going to put any money in the market. No, I'm going to put money in the market. So that's going to happen regardless. Like I'm going to find the money to do that. And that's one thing that we would do. We would stay consistent at figuring out how to get more money in the market, either by flipping the money that we have in there already or creating new money to put into the market. And that's whether it's our Roth IRAs or brokerage accounts or whatever. So if we were in the US, number 7 would be cutting subscription costs. So I think Jermaine just did that for us. I think he looked over our subscriptions, because even though we live outside of the US, we still have subscriptions. So we can stream movies, have movie nights, movie date nights, all that kind of stuff. But we also look and we audit our streaming service subscriptions frequently. We look to see, okay, have we watched all the movies we wanted to watch on this particular streaming platform? Are there any new movies that we're thinking about getting? If not, we will look around to see, okay, do we need to get rid of that particular streaming platform? And then we look to see, should we get another one if there's some movies we want to watch with another one? Or what we do is we'll get rid of it altogether. But one thing Jermaine always does is he always looks for some kind of deal before just letting one go and then picking up another. He's always looking for a way for us to either get that streaming for free trial, whatever it is. And those things help to save money as well. Because I don't think we spend over $10 to $15 on streaming, and I think we have a few different streaming services. The other thing that we would be doing, which we consistently do if we were back in the States, number 8 is pay all of our expenses using credit cards. We travel hack, so that means we pay all of our expenses and all of our bills that can be paid with credit cards using our credit cards, and then we pay it off with cash. And so the reason why we do that is because bills aren't going anywhere. Your rent is still going to be due, your mortgage is going to be due, your light bill, your water bill, groceries, dining out, all of that stuff is going to be due. So, but what travel hackers like us do is we pay our bills using our credit card, and then we pay that off using cash. And that money that's spent on the credit card, whatever our monthly expenses are, we earn cash rewards, points, miles that are equivalent to money that can be used for travel in the future, or even cash back. Now, Jermaine's golden rule is we don't use any of our points and miles for cash back. I'm just mentioning that because that's one of the things that you can use it for. But travel, hotels, resorts, flights, all of those things, paying our bills with our cards allows us to earn rewards to do those things and offset those costs. So we would continue to do that if we were in the US. Number 9 is think internationally. And Jermaine and I started doing this about 2 years ago. So this was before the current president was in office. So I don't want you to think we left the US because of the president being in office, because we actually left before the president was elected. We don't have a problem with the US. We love the US. That's where we were born. That's our country. We are Americans. There are things we don't love about it, but there are things that we really do love about it. We're American citizens. We love being there. I mean, that's our country. But we did start thinking internationally, probably really a long time ago. We started thinking internationally. The first time I think I told Jermaine we should move to Kenya was 2017. We wound up moving to Kenya. We over the years, we prayed about it. We planned, we asked the Lord to lead us, and we found the opportunity. And that started with us researching. We had to look for the opportunities to relocate internationally. And if you relocate to a low cost of living area, it would allow you to stretch your dollars farther. Like I said, for Jermaine and I, we relocated, but it's like our expenses are almost equal to our expenses in the US because we have expenses here and we have expenses in the US. So, and we still have a son in college, so that kind of increases our expenses just a little bit. But if you want to stretch your money, yes, looking around for other countries, and we still do, because we think about going and staying in Thailand for a little bit, because that'll reduce our monthly expenses. But that does help you stretch your dollars a little bit farther. And also thinking about, how can I work internationally? Like if you've never researched that at your company, like if I worked at a company, I would be looking to see, I would be checking the job board to see, do they have opportunities for me to move internationally? Like there's international companies in most countries. And so like I'm looking out the window now and I see Microsoft, I see Cigna, I see BMW. Like there's a lot of different companies you can work for in other countries, but you have to be looking for those opportunities. And if I worked a 9-to-5 or I work for a company, I would be definitely looking at that if I was in the US. The other thing I would do, number 10, if I was in the US, was focus on ownership. So Jermaine and I are homeowners, and for a long time, we've been thinking as owners and not consumers. And that's one of the reasons why we worked on getting out of debt, which means we stopped taking out loans for cars. We started paying for our cars in cash, because we realized, and I'm talking about hoopties. I ain't talking about no BMWs, no Mercedes and all of that. No, we was buying beaters, like, you know, car that gets you from point A to point B, and then we moved up, and then we bought a more decent car, and then a more decent car. We never got into luxury cars because that's not our thing. Like I don't think that's for us a good investment of our financial resources, and we don't have that kind of money to be out here buying luxury cars. But what we do is we started thinking like owners and not consumers. And when we buy a car outright, I think we spent like $1,000. I think I spent like $2,500 for my first car. Then our second car, I think we spent like $1,500, and I think that was a lemon. And then the next car, we just kept repeating the process. And so, but we always owned the cars because we've been upside down on car loans, and it wasn't a good feeling. So yeah, I that's just not a good feeling. So we began to think like owners and not consumers. And so what we did is we started saying, okay, we're gonna invest our money in a way that makes sense, that profits us versus profiting a company. So the other thing we did is we began investing in companies that we regularly spend our money with, and the way we do that is in the market, and we would just continue to do that. If we were in the US and us being here in Kenya, we're still going to invest in companies that just make sense, US companies that make sense in the stock market. The other thing we do is we own our content. Our personal brand is Travel Check-ins LLC. We also have an LLC for our rental investment company, and we're just going to continue to own our own content and own our own brand. We had a company reach out to us not too long ago, and they was wanting to use our content for AI training. They wanted to take our YouTube videos and use them for AI training, and they would have had the intellectual property rights to our content for like 3 years, and then there was these hoops you had to jump through to get those intellectual property rights back, and that just made no sense for me. Like, I'm not going to sell my content or sell my personal brand, my products, my website, or anything to anybody else unless the numbers look right. It has to be a good ROI. So focus on ownership means owning your home, owning your car, owning your property. It also means owning your content, your intellectual property rights. It also means owning your time. And I feel like Jermaine and I are in a better position when it comes to owning our time. We were there when we were in the US. We were both independent contractors. I had been a content creator since 2008. Jermaine had been an independent contractor since forever. And we were doing that because we were trying to build freedom from the jump. Like, ever since we started thinking about it, we realized how jobs can sometimes keep you boxed in. We were figuring out, okay, how do we get outside of this box? So focus on ownership is something we would do, which we continue to do. And number 11 is budgeting our money. If we were still in the US, we would be budgeting our money. We budget our money here. We sit down every month and we have a budget meeting. We try to figure out, okay, this is how much we anticipate is going to come in this month. Where are we investing this money? Because we don't think from a mindset of spending. Spending means it's spent, it's been exhausted. We think from a mindset of investing, and we think, okay, where are we going to invest our dollars? And even when you're talking about like just buying groceries, we think about, okay, where are we going to spend that money? Because that money will be exhausted, right? And we think about what stores are we going to shop at? And we also look for areas in our budget where we can reduce or eliminate expenses. That's really big. But on the flip side of that, sometimes you eliminate expenses as far as you can go, and then you realize, okay, there's nothing else I can eliminate, and now you have to make more money. And that's why I include that in the things that Jermaine and I would do if we were in the US, because sometimes it's not about eliminating, sometimes it's about increasing. So you want to balance the two. And as far as budgeting goes, we always sit down and have a meeting so that we have a clear picture of where every dollar that we make in our income is going to be either spent or invested for that particular month. If you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, and I will link to our other video, how to quit and move abroad with $2,000 if you're really looking to quit your job and move abroad. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.